Honestly, guys, I think it's safe to say that Ahsoka is one of the better shows Disney has produced, but will it save Star Wars is the question. Simple answer, no. I really don't think this one show can save a franchise the size of Star Wars. That's honestly impossible. It takes the right decisions to save a franchise the size of Star Wars, and honestly, a right decision they made was making this show. It's a great show. Before anything, let's have a quick little review on the 8th episode, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. And honestly, the play on words here, it's honestly, it's kind of funny here, like come on. This episode was honestly pretty great as by itself, it has so many implications to the events in the future that it will keep us theorizing for a while. With that said, I'll just say it. Thrawn won. Spoilers everyone, Thrawn has won and will become a massive threat to the New Republic going forward. But perhaps not just Thrawn will threaten the order of the main universe. What I said just now is a little bit cryptic, but don't leave, don't click off yet. I'll get to it in a moment. But let me get back to Ahsoka. When it comes to Ahsoka and Sabine, they have been stranded on the planet, while Ezra sneaks onto Thrawn's ship and steals his ship by going ahead and pretending to be a trooper, and he goes off and meets Hera in the main galaxy, which it's honestly pretty nice. It's a nice little scene. And that's all they really give us, just them just seeing each other after so many years. It was nice. It was a nice scene. When it comes to this season, I would have been fine with this season just being a one-off where they just, nip everything in the bud in this season, where they battle Enoch, Shin, and Balin to try and take control of the ship. It would have been cool to see them fighting all over the ship in hyperspace, and then they reach their destination in the main galaxy, where Ezra would use an old rebellion frequency that catches Hera's attention. She would inform her fleet, and finally, with some semblance of reason, the higher-ups okay the mission to head out to fight Thrawn. With that being said, of course I'm going to talk about the zombie night troopers. That was fucking sick. That shit was amazing. I would have loved to see more of them in the battle where all this takes place. But honestly, with how the season ends, I don't think, we saw the last of the Night Mothers. And I honestly hope to God we see more of zombie troopers in general. That shit was cool. The show ending like this, or a variation, would have been fine for me, but them setting up abeloth is pretty fucking badass in itself. I can't even be mad or disappointed, like, goddamn. Her being an antagonist for either beyond the sequels or for the time period between the originals and the sequel eras is fine either way for me, but I just hope Dave isn't given too much to where his attention is everywhere and he can't properly tell the stories he wants to tell. That itself would honestly be a tragedy. In the end, I feel like this episode alone would have had much more impact if they planned for everything to be nipped in the bud in this episode. But I understand now with everything they're setting up. Goddamn, it's making me get excited for the next season and the events to come. This episode itself is a solid 8 for me personally, but with so many open threads, it left me wanting more. But with no clear answers and just stuff for us to really just theorize for the upcoming events. But I think that's okay. But for me, it's a solid 8. It just with everything just ending up so open-ended, it just didn't have the same impact as a finale should for me personally. But it's still good. It's still good. Now let's talk about the series as a whole, and then after that we start asking questions and theorize a little bit about what will happen now with Thrawn on the loose, basically, and possibly with Abeloth being awakened. Now, I've been mulling it over when thinking about this series, and I want to address some complaints people have, the good, the bad, and the pretty okay decisions in the show. Spoiler warning again for everyone who hasn't watched the show, but let's focus on what the show did that was shaky at best. I think the worst part about the show was Sabine. Nothing about her actress or anything, it's just the character. But we can't really fault the character as she is given a role that is normally given to Ezra and now she needs to make it her own. I think some mistakes they made with her was really clear. I think, her surviving a lightsaber stabbing, her just barely wearing her helmet, especially in combat. She doesn't give off the same impression as Sabine that we've seen in the shows before. And, just the whole different role that she has now. It's just sort of hard to watch. When it comes to the New Republic, they're just basically incompetent bastards, and it's just kind of frustrating because they can't really break their own canon from the god awful sequels that they made, because they can't all of a sudden make these guys super competent here in this series and only 5-10 years later they allow themselves to get blown the fuck up. Shit like that, right? It's just, it's unfortunate that this good series here leads to the sequels. I've seen a weird take where people are upset that a majority of the cast members here are women. You're like, yeah, sure, a majority of the cast here are women, but that's fine. That's fine with me. People seem to forget the reason why most of our main cast are alive, especially Ahsoka, Sabine. The reason why they're still breathing is because of Kanan and Ezra's sacrifices. One has already passed on, and the entire point finding Thrawn was to find Ezra too, who in my opinion did a great service to the rebels by taking Thrawn, a massively important piece of the Imperial's army, off the board. The show's story is pretty interesting, and honestly, in my opinion, for a show with Ahsoka, like this story is probably the only one that makes proper sense, right? Find Thrawn and Ezra's whereabouts, kill or arrest Thrawn, and, save Ezra. If only things were that simple, right? Of course, Ahsoka has been hunting down Thrawn for a while, with Hera supporting her, and Sabine just been, I honestly don't know what Sabine has been doing. She's been mainly, on Lothal missing Ezra. Now, I was saying that I'm a firm believer that a series doesn't need to make every episode, one after the other, better than the last. What I believe is that a series needs consistency. Some episodes may be better than others, and one way we can see this is where episodes clearly are made to set up a more exciting episode, which we see here in Ahsoka at least twice. I don't know if some people may count the 8th episode as a setup episode for the next season, but not for me. It's a climax, whatever, right? But when it comes to episode 1 and 2, they were great episodes to set the foundations of the series, objectives, and the status quo of all the characters involved. Episode 3 was essentially a wonderfully done setup episode to bring our heroes onto the planet of Cetos, where episode 4 and 5 would be absolute bangers at advancing the plot and Ahsoka's character. Then episode 6 would be a slower setup episode with reveals we all knew were coming. Like, come on, like we knew, like these reveals were about to come. And it helps set up our climax episodes 7 and 8. What did I say? Consistency. So with all that said, let's talk about the characters. Personally, I think they did most of the characters justice. Ahsoka is like, 45, yet people want her to be a little bit more quirky or emotional. I guess like in her younger days, I guess. I don't know. People will start having a take where they didn't like, Rosario Dawson's acting or how Ahsoka's portrayed. I don't know what they really want from like a 45-year-old Ahsoka. I don't know what they expected. It's not really realistic here, as, she still has that Ahsoka in her. She still loves to mess with people. Like, look at Huang. She went ahead and messed with him a little bit, about the Star Whale thing. That shit was hilarious. It was funny to me, at least. It made me chuckle. Hera is honestly pretty accurate with how she is portrayed, where she will always put friends above her status in the end. She is a pilot, not really known for her close quarters combat unless she really needs to. Like, she can really fight. She can beat your ass. But that's not really her role. Her role is just being a pilot. And not even just a pilot. She's a mother. She's a commander. She is tied down by a lot of responsibilities, which makes it hard on her to move due to the circumstances she is in. When it comes to Sabine, she's placed in a role she isn't quite suited for, only doing it for the skills she needs to really defend herself against, force-sensitive people. With this, it's fine, but it's kind of hard to see her struggle sometimes, and honestly, it just doesn't feel right for her. They put her in a role where clearly she doesn't have a jetpack, and it would make her fights way easier. But because they need her in this specific role, they need her to basically be in the front lines at all times. She can't run away with her jetpack. They took it away from her, so she can go ahead and develop her abilities in this role as being a pseudo Jedi. In my opinion, Sabine is at her best when it comes to dealing with Mandalorian stuff. I think when she returns to the main galaxy, that she should be a key figure in helping Mandalore thrive. Now we have come to Thrawn. I love Thrawn. Thrawn is still a goddamn menace. Although he is a bit nerfed due to his limited resources and his goal actively being hindered, essentially, to get back home, which is a no-go for our heroes. Honestly, this whole take that, that they went ahead and botched him or anything like that, I don't know why people are assuming this. People are saying that his decisions are flawed and all this and that, but like, keep in mind, he's just trying to go home. He's just trying to go ahead and distract or at best outcome, kill our heroes, right? But his main prerogative is going home. And, by going home, he's won. And, he did. He did win. I've had discussions with people about his tactics, but in the end, his objective was to escape the galaxy that he was stuck in. And he did. He won, like I said before. The man won. And there's nothing anybody can say that can go ahead and prove otherwise that his tactics were flawed, because in the end, he won. He did everything that he thought was right to win, and he did win. He's going back home. I will say, though, that Thrawn can't really express his true terrifying nature here, mainly due to, well, what's the show called again, right? If it was like, cannon fodder and, he was just destroying random, like, New Republic, starships and stuff like that, he would have been all over their ass. He would have been destroying them in an instant when he's fully rested. He has his resources all stocked up, and, he can command, a bunch of starships like before. He would have been, on some really menace type shit. But, well, like I said, he's just going home right now, so he's not at that stage yet. Alright, let's talk about Baylan and Shin. They have an interesting dynamic as both are false Jedi, I guess. I guess that's what they're called here. Not really Sith, but they go against the Jedi Code and they're mercenaries and stuff like that, right? We still don't know much about them, but they're both really interesting. Their conversations are also pretty interesting as well. Especially the one, I think my favorite conversation is between Baylan opening up a little bit about his time in the Order to Shin. Genuinely, I think if you love Star Wars or your interest is dying out, this show is honestly pretty good. It won't disappoint you, at least I hope, especially if you watch Rebels. This is a love letter to Rebels fans, and I just couldn't, recommend this show anymore. It's really good. It's lovely. The action is pretty good. The lightsaber battles, especially with Ahsoka, are bangers, especially when Anakin is in a scene with her. Feels like she's at her best when Anakin is at her side. The set pieces, oh my god, I love the set pieces here. It is like a breath of fresh air. I'm tired of fucking sand planets, and here in Ahsoka we get a variety of places in which honestly, my favorite place is the forest on Cetos. Final verdicts, honestly, this series I want to say is a 9. I really want to say is a 9, but I will stick with an 8, as I feel like this series could have hit harder with the last episode. But when it comes to the open-ended ending for me, it kind of withdrew. It lightened the punch of the series, which kind of brought it down for me personally. If you think it's a 9, 10, whatever, that's good. I believe this series is a fucking banger. You should watch this. But for me personally, I'll stick with an 8. Don't get me wrong, I love the ending of season 1, but with what they're setting up, I'm a little bit more excited for that than, season 1's overarching plot, right? If that makes sense, because they lightened the punch of the finale for this second season, which, with what they're implicating, with everything that's going on, will hit harder than season 1, which is what I'm excited for. But let's be honest with ourselves, our heroes are scattered, and much of what's going on is left up in the air, and what will happen next. But I get why they are doing this, to help set up the next season and the events to come in the main galaxy, to come to fruition, and I think that's fine. That's fine with me. It excites me for the second season. It makes me feel like the plots for the second season will be much more interesting than the first one. Of course, the first season is a love letter to Rebels, but I want to see what's going to happen in the second season as sort of like an original sort of idea to bring Abeloth and bringing Thrawn back to this sort of era, this in-between era of the originals and the sequels. I want to see what's going on here. I want him to be the big bad, and hopefully they still do him justice by the end. Now, let's end this video with some questions. The big one being, how will the New Republic respond to the Empire's Golden Boy's return? What do you guys think? How will Ahsoka, Sabine, and Yuan get home? What will Ezra do now that he is home? And when Abeloth is awakened somehow, how will she play into the events that is to come? There's so many questions I want to ask, but with these individual questions, I'll leave up for discussion in the comments below. If you enjoyed this show, let me know in the comments below. As you know, it's me, Cinderman. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, anything you'd like to do to support the channel. Thank you guys so much. I'm excited for everything that is to come to Star Wars right now. Stay safe, stay healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. Peace.